Welcome to the Journeyman's Bits. New coloured boilie and a different rig. It has to be said, when it comes to rigs, I'm a bit of a tart. Not because I like them all clean and shiny. It's because I've got no strong allegiance to any particular rig, except possibly my wafter rig, which I'm happy to use anywhere. But that's a confidence thing, because I know I can catch on it, especially if I'm fishing a new water. But if I'm catching fish on a regular basis, I like to set myself a challenge by catching on a different rig instead of the same one all the time. Now, over the years, I've had a few requests to go into a bit more detail about the rigs I'm using, so I thought I'd take this opportunity, now we're all sitting in splendid isolation, to make a few videos about the rigs I'm using and the components I use to make them. Anyway, I hope they're of use and I hope you enjoy them. In part one, I'm going to be looking at the multi-combi rig. Now, this can be used for a wafter or a pop-up rig. I mainly use it for pop-ups, and they're attached to a small flexi ring swivel, and that runs on a loop of 20 to 25 pound braid, a curved shank hook, some putty that goes over a knot, which we'll go into in a minute, and then the hook link, which I use 18 pound ghost. Now, the knot used to join the braid and the ghost fluorocarbon hook link together is called a Albright knot, but it's not a straightforward Albright knot, it's slightly adapted. So what I'm going to do first is show you how to tie the Albright knot. Now, if you think of the orange braid I'm using here as the fluorocarbon hook link, fold a loop into the end of it, and then you take your braid that you're going to make the loop out of, put it through the loop that you've created in the fluorocarbon, and then you slowly and carefully wrap the braid around the fluorocarbon. I use 8 times for this particular knot, so I go 8 times round over the fluorocarbon, and when I've gone round the 8 times, I go back over myself 4 times, heading back towards the loop I created in the fluorocarbon. Once I've gone round 4 times, and I go through that loop the same way as I came through it in the first instance. Then the knot should always be wetted and then ease down towards the end of the loop and then eventually pulled up nice and tight. Now that's the Albright knot, and if it was just a normal hook link, you just trim it off. You can blob it if you're really fussy, but I've never had one slip, so I don't generally. Now you can use that to join any line to a braid. Now, with this particular combi rig, because it's a version of a multi-rig, we need to be able to slip the hook on and off with a loop. So instead of just going through the loop, we have to double over the braid. So you do exactly the same thing with the fluorocarbon, make a loop and then put a double length of the braid through that loop. Now I aim to finish the braid loop about 40 millimeters, and that's the bit that's going to go through the hook. So I actually start tying it about 30 millimeters, because when you tighten it down it extends itself a little bit. So you put the 2 bits of braid of the loop round, and this time, because it's doubled up, I only go 6 times along its length, and then I go back over it 3 times. Having gone back over 3 times, you do exactly the same as you did before, except put the 2 tags back through the loop exactly the same way you came in. wet it down again, and then just ease it towards the end. And then because you've got a loop on the end there, you can use a pulley tool to tighten everything down. And again, once it's all tightened down and you're happy, you can trim it off. Now I don't trim it off too short because it's all going to have putty moulded around it, so a little bit of tag is not too much of a problem. Now that's the loop that you have to create, and that's what the final one looks like with the braid and the fluorocarbon line. On the other end is my normal figure of 8 loop with a bit of shrink tube over the top for protection. To form the figure of 8 loop, first determine the length of your hook link, then fold the material over to form a loop. Now I make it slightly bigger than I actually want it to finish up, catering for it be getting slightly smaller when you've tied the knot. And form a loop, and then twist that loop round to form a slightly smaller loop, and then put the end of your link through to form the figure of 8. It's as simple as that. And then just pull it down tight, steam it if necessary, and I put a bit of shrink tube over the top of that just to neaten it up. Then I cut off about 10 to 12 millimeters of silicone tubing. I think it's about 1.5 millimeter tubing. Slide it onto the loop, then pass that braid loop in through the eye of the hook, going in from the point of the hook side onto that braid loop. I put the flexi ring swivel, and then that braided loop is passed over the top of the hook and that forms the D on the back of the hook. And then the silicone tubing is pushed up, although a bit fiddly, over the eye of the hook to trap the braid in place. So you've now formed the multi-rig basically. Then we just need to get a bit of tungsten putty and mould that over the knot and neaten all that area up. So you have all the attributes of a combination rig, with you've got the stiffer fluorocarbon and the flexibility of the braid, but you've got the bonus that it's a multi-rig, so when the hook gets damaged or blunt, you can just change it very quickly. So there you have it in summary. You've got the pop-up of your choice fixed to the flexi ring swivel, which is attached to the braided loop, which is held in place with a little bit of silicone. My favourite curved hook pattern, bit of tungsten putty over the knot, and your fluorocarbon hook link of your choice. Well, there you have it. That's my version of the multi-combi rig, and indeed that's the rig that had the 30s in part 3 of the Journeyman's Tales. Thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing. If you haven't subscribed yet and you want to get involved, please feel free to do so. Don't forget to give it a big fat like and boost the algorithms. But most of all, stay safe out there. Cheers for now. Bye. I can't swear here, can I? No swearing, please.